little bit earlier in the show, we spoke about 1 in 5 police officers are warning they are likely to leave the force in the next 12 months, which got us thinking and talking. And give us a call, 133 693. Have you made a career change, or are you considering a career change? People are more likely to do it these days. Sue Ellison is on the line, a career expert. Good afternoon, Sue.
Hi, Jimmy.
A career change. I asked, obviously, our professor a little bit earlier. Used to be you'd pick your career coming out of high school or university, and you'd roll the sleeves up and you'd make your way through the organisation, 20, 30 years there, and get the gold watch, as they say at the end. We're more likely to change these days, aren't we?
We definitely are. And at the beginning of my career, it was about 9 job changes, and now it's well over 12.
Yeah.
And the actual number of people, according to the Australian Bureau of Statistics, changing jobs is at its highest rate now since 2012. So the job mobility rate has actually increased as well.
Are we seeing massive industry shifts? There can be career changes where you can work in the one industry but do a different role. And I've had these conversations with good mates of mine. One's gone from real estate to teaching. Are we seeing complete industry changes, or are they still staying in the same stream?
I don't have those specific details, but I do know that if you are going to change careers and it's going to be something completely different, it is better if you do it on a transition basis, so that you do it kind of part-time to sort of suck it and see and make sure it is really what you're looking for. One thing I do get very anxious about is somebody throwing their hands in the air and saying, I'm just getting out of here and I'm going to buy a franchise or a business or something like that. And they've never done it before, and that's super risky. So I guess the bigger thing I'd suggest is don't believe everything you watch on social media about how you're going to make loads of money out of something else. Do your research and do something on a transitional basis first.
Well, I was going to ask you about that. You flick onto any social media platform and the rise of the at-home entrepreneur, if you will, or the side hustle. Does that worry you or scare you, that people going, I'm going to focus on my side hustle?
It's fine if they're doing it while they're still working. It's a big worry if they quit their job and try and just make money out of it. And the little advertisements, basically, that you're getting on social media are very convincing. Oh, you don't need to have any cost to set up, and this is how much money, and if you multiply this number by that number, you'll get the same thing. But you really need to test it out, and I wouldn't invest any money in any of those sorts of things. I would always do it, again, as I said before, on a suck it and see basis, and also see if you can talk to anybody else who's done it before you go down that path. But I've heard of people spending $15,000 on some new Butte scheme and never actually even completing a course to set up their system. So there's a lot of people who waste a lot of money. And as you were talking about yesterday on the program, this idea of trades, I mean, there's shortages in particular areas, and some of these industries would be very grateful to have you come and work for them, and perhaps being a bit more lateral in your approach and thinking about, well, where are the jobs? And working close to home could be a really big bonus as well. 133
693. If you've ever made a big career change or shift, give us a call. So you mentioned courses. That was leading to my next question that I wanted to ask you. The accessibility of many short courses and providers where you don't have to go do the 4+ year or 3+ year university degrees. Is the rise of the accessibility of all these short courses allowing people to make that shift a little bit easier?
I think it's a really good opportunity to try something out. I never recommend a 4 or 5 full-on course. I had a friend of mine who was of a similar age, and he was originally a database administrator, which is basically a computer programmer, and wanted to go into data science. And when he went to actually investigate a course at a university, he actually found that the course, even though it was at one of the top universities, was 5 years out of date. So if you want a theoretical knowledge, then yes, a longer course is definitely worth it. But if you want vocational training that's going to give you the skills to do a particular role, those short courses are really, really valuable. Now, if you've got a local library card, you can get access to free courses on LinkedIn Learning. Librarians are a wealth of information on different courses that you can do as well. And also bear in mind that if you go to get some career advice from an educational provider, of course, they're going to recommend a course for you. They're not going to recommend a job. So, again, get some experience in that industry first before you rush out and spend the course. One other person I spoke to at an expo, she wanted to be an airline pilot, and I said, well, why don't you just take 10 flying lessons first, see whether you really like it, and then consider going for your pilot's license. So there's lots of ways you can do that sort of thing.
I hate using these terms, and I think most of our listeners, I think everyone has been worn out by the terms, since COVID and during COVID and things like that. But myself in particular, while COVID was on, I went back and did some further study. Was COVID a big catalyst for a lot of people to really sit back and reassess what they wanted to do?
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt. And it actually gave people a bit of a chance to look after their mental health. And I think they realised that they'd been suffering for years without even realising that they were really under the pump and really stressed, because as soon as they stopped, they actually had to deal with how uncomfortable they felt and their anxiety and depression and stress and everything that had been building up. And, of course, it all bubbled to the surface, and a lot of people started reevaluating their options. And I think it's been – you've got to remember that, let's say you're interested in changing jobs and you go to a recruiter. A recruiter is responding on behalf of an employer, and they're looking for somebody to get into the job, stay there 3 months, they get their commission. But if you go to somebody like a career specialist, they will actually give you advice that's suited for you, and if it's a qualified one, they're going to be able to do some additional assessments for you, and you're paying them for advice that's related to you and your circumstances. And so hopefully it'll encourage people to get that professional advice rather than just talk to a few mates down at the pub or something and say, what do you reckon I'd be good at? That's not necessarily the best way to get the next job.
No, that's pretty sound advice. So, any other little tidbits? I liked your piece on, go try something first before you actually spend a lot of money, getting qualifications. I'd love to be a pro golfer, but I can't seem to keep the ball on the fairway. But is there anything else you could leave us with a little bit of advice, people considering making a career change?
Look, I really think that part-time piece is important. So instead of saying, I need another full-time job, why don't you consider doing reducing your current job to 4 days a week and doing something else 1 day a week, and just seeing how that works for you and whether you would enjoy that change. You definitely need to talk to a lot more people and find out what they like about it. But let's say you're a police officer considering it. It's a very niche industry to be a police officer, and there's specific training. And moving back out into the civilian world, defence people have the same sorts of issues, some medical professionals. It's a very different beast, and a lot of people won't understand you. So it's really important to speak to people who've made that transition and understand that it is a significant adjustment, and any job that you move into, even if you had 100% competency, would take at least 6 months before you become unconsciously competent, whereas you just do everything on automatic pilot.
One quick one before I let you go, Sue. How many career changes have you had?
I have not had a real job since 1994. I was in banking for 11 years. Yeah. And so every single day is a different gig for me. So, I've done heaps and heaps of different things. And I've been doing this for a long time. And I actually believe that is the future of work. We're all going to have work, not jobs. So we're going to have to be able to understand, how do we use technology to attract aligned gigs? And that's the big wave that's coming next. So watch out. If you don't have a digital presence and people can't find you for your skills, you could be out of work real quick.
Thanks for that sound advice, Sue Elson, career expert, who was giving some great advice if you want to make a career change, a little tidbits to consider before you do make that big jump. Peter's given us a call. Good afternoon, Peter.